Hello, dear friends. This is Kardec Radio at 11 p.m., nourishing our souls together, enjoying these wonderful encounters with the Master, Jesus, through the book Jesus in the Home by the Spirit Neio Lucio through Chico Xavier. In this book, we're gonna find the recounts, we're gonna find the reports of Neio Lucio regarding true passages between Jesus and the disciples and many other people. They were gathering at Peter's house, and they had questions, they had their opinions, and Jesus would come across and share stories to teach. But here we are going to find verbal and non-verbal lessons, which is beautiful. The non-verbal lessons are very empowering because they give us a full spectrum of the holistic master that we have. We don't have a master of words or simple actions. We have an integral master, so holistic that every facial expression, every gesture, the way his posture, his silence, everything is measured because he's the perfect master. In the book, in the Spirit's book by Allan Kardec, Kardec asked this question: if God has sent the most perfect, what was the most perfect guiding model sent to the earth? And the answer was Jesus. Jesus is the most perfect of all. And we're saying this not because of the man, but what he came to represent, the real humanity, right? So for us, we have a model. If one day we're sad, don't know what to do, or don't understand things, feel lonely, or put aside, whatever we feel, if you feel afflicted, he said, you're blessed. He's always pointing to a beautiful direction. So much so, I'll give you an example. If you go to the book 50 years later by Emmanuel through Chico Xavier, in that book we're gonna find Celia, the main character. And Celia is so interesting. She embraced Christianity way before she left the Roman society. She embraced it, renouncing the appeals of life at the time, of that social organization. And she went through several tough experiences, expelled by the father. She was almost raped. She was abandoned. She was despised. She was undermined. People slandered her. And the beauty of it all is that Celia, in the book 50 years later, is reported to interpret every scenario from a Christ-conscious perspective. She never told herself, oh, you see, I can't be with the love of my life. Yeah, maybe I don't deserve it. Or, why do I always end up in these situations? No, she never interpreted life from that angle. In these books by Emmanuel, we learn how to encode the messages in the right way. And what is it? We're here to learn. There's always something good at the end of the tunnel. It's a blessing in disguise. So everything she saw was a blessing in disguise. Everything she saw was a blessing in disguise. In everything she's done and that she experienced, she felt it's tough. She cried, but she always prayed and had faith in the higher spirits, in Jesus. And thus she overcame obstacle by obstacle by obstacle until she reached the climax. And you may think, because she turned to be a healing medium? No. I think the climax, it's clear because it's the end of the book. And I'm not gonna spoil anything, because even if you read it, it's worth reading again. When she encounters her father, she was the reason why her father turned his heart to Jesus. I think there's nothing better than that, than seeing your loved ones on track with Master Jesus, right? So this is our introduction for today, as we are going to begin chapter 47, titled The Disturbed Educator. But let me say hi to the friends before everything else. Hello Daisy, we're missing you. Thank you for joining us. Jailton, welcome. Raquel Bakeshi, how have you been? Alicia Ramos, big hug to you and the Spiritist family in the Philippines. Leia Severo, big hug to you. Saudades. Dulce, 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 Dulce. We can do it. Let's organize ourselves. Sol Souza, how have you been? Karina Alice, super hug to you. Nora Brazil, how have you been? John the Rosa, how have you been, John? Melissa, what a joy, Melissa, to have you here. Teresa Castro, thank you for your presence. Lisa Teles, how have you been? Dear Carol Correia, how have you been? Elza Rossi, how have you been? What a joy to have you here. Rudy, present, gratefully present. Are you ready? Today the message is different, new, and we're gonna learn a lot. Neio Lucio, in chapter 47 of this book, says, The Disturbed Educator. And he begins talking about Andrew, saying, Andrew, the helpful apostle. Who is Andrew? Huh? People barely remember. Andrew is the brother of Peter. Simon Peter. And why does Neio Lucio highlights that Andrew was the helpful apostle? For several reasons. One of them, Andrew was the one that introduced Jesus to Simon Peter. Did you know that Andrew also was a follower of John the Baptist before he got engaged into the teachings of leading, before following Jesus in that lifetime? He was also the one who pointed out the boy who had the loaves and the fish when Jesus was helping, take care of the hunger of the many, the multitude of people that were listening to him. So it's so beautiful because we never give so much value, but Andrew in the Catholic Church is considered a saint. He created a church in Constantinople, and he really went on and on as a true apostle of Jesus. So it's good to know. Andrew, the helpful apostle, was commenting on how hard it was to adjust to living according to the new truths when Jesus told the following story for everyone's edification. So it's interesting because today we have a proposal here. The Master is speaking without words as well, teaching without words. So he is telling a story to edify. Assessment question to all of us. Do you often speak to edify? Because sometimes we gossip and we may slander, thinking, oh, but I'm just protecting Spiritism, or my family, but then I am bad-mouthing 10,000 people. We're learning with the Master that we open our mouths to help, to elevate. After all, in the book Mechanisms of Mediumship by Andrea Lewis, we have the knowledge that there are only two types of mental currents: constructive mental current, destructive mental current. There's no in between. There's no neutral, like I would say, but. No, there's no but. No. There is neutral. No. There's constructive or destructive. So everything we're doing, we asked, is this constructive or destructive? There's no in between. There's no like more or less, a little destructive, a little constructive. So much so that in the Gospel according to Spiritism, there is a chapter that talks about the false prophets. The false prophets. And it was a warning. It was a warning that was given by Jesus to all of us. And we need to pay attention to those who come to us and say part truth, part something that is not true. When you have that iffy feeling, something is off. Tonight at the mediumistic meeting of the Spiritist Society of Virginia, we had a spirit who comes and says, remind everyone that you can't say lies or little lies and keep preaching the gospel of Jesus. You need to be coherent. So for all of us, if we want to talk about the truth, we need to be truthful. Little lies or big lies, we can't. Can you imagine? Can you imagine Jesus not telling the truth? No. He was always authentic. And if he couldn't say it, he wouldn't say it. So it's a lesson for us. The story Jesus said, there was once a remarkably strong man who was a specialist in various types of services of reparation and readjustment. He was invited by an angel to help mend a crippled man who longed to enter heaven, and he accepted the job. He approached the infirm man with hammer in hand, and despite the cries and tears that his work drew out of the unfortunate man, he helped him to improve on a daily basis until he fulfilled his commitment. The divine messenger was pleased and asked him to help a lame elderly woman who eagerly wished to enter the heavenly court. Indifferent to the groans of the old woman, the stout worker imposed healing discipline on her and gradually got her in shape to ascend to the sublime realms. The jubilant minister of the Most High then asked for his help to restore a sore-covered and afflicted man who yearned for Edenic beatitude. The repairman didn't hesitate. Completely deaf to the unfortunate man's complaints, he attentively and rigorously lanced his sores, putting him in the position to ascend to heaven. When that job was done, the angel returned and asked for his cooperation on behalf of a young boy who was lost in bad habits. The restorer took the lad under his wing and gave him work and self-restraint with such a level of training that in no time at all the task was completed. And so the heavenly messenger asked him to help with various complex cases of physical and moral restructuring until one day the distinguished educator, weary of his imperfect life on earth, begged the angelic administrator for permission to go with him to heaven. The sublime ambassador examined him in detail and told him that he needed to prepare himself with the great event in mind. He pointed out his deformed feet, his deficient arms, and his deficient eyes. This time he asked him to readjust. The angel asked the man to readjust himself in order to ascend to heaven. The disciplinarian began the task of self-betterment, hopeful and optimistic. However, his old hammer now wounded his own flesh so roughly that instead of mending his feet, arms, and eyes, he fell to the floor nearly paralyzed and half-blind, haplessly and unsubmissively writhing in pain, speaking blasphemies and spewing insults at God and the world. He was unable to bear the saving treatment that he had applied to others, so much so that even his angel friend had an extremely hard time telling who he was because he looked so different. Having finished the lengthy task to which he had subjected the unfortunate man, the messenger of the Eternal One had no other recourse but to entrust him to other educators for the readjustment he needed by using the same salutary strictness with which he had treated others, so that the distinguished repairman could be perfected suitably enough to enter paradise. Noting the surprised looks on everyone's faces, the Lord concluded. So how about you guys? Are you surprised with Jesus' stories? Is it too graphic? Is it too strong? Because at the end, Jesus said, "Let us use patience and love in all our tasks of correction, and let us learn to bear the measures with which we seek to improve the position of those around us. Because for every spirit, the time comes when it must be effectively and safely polished up for the divine light." Ay, 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 ay. This reminds me so much of parents and children. Parents who tell their children, don't scream, don't shout, and they are already doing it. Pay attention to me, but when the children talk to the parents don't pay attention. Don't keep looking at your phone, look at me, but when you look at the parents and talk to them, they're looking at their phones. So, in a way, we can transpose this lesson to our daily lives. Because sometimes we want a colleague, our spouse, a friend, to be X way. But then in our daily lives, we don't demand on us. That's why Chico Xavier used to say that it's better for us to demand from ourselves, like, instead of others. Be demanding with our own selves. That doesn't mean we're not gonna share insights, lessons. We will, but we're not gonna demand. We're not gonna be on people's doors saying, "Hello, have you changed? Come on." Because I've seen parents, educators who are so cruel, like this disturbed educator, who are always like, "Why are you doing this? Why you do that?" They are repressing, constantly being the critical parent. And that doesn't go further because we don't get mature by somebody else telling us that we are wrong, or hurting us with words. So tonight, if I could say, if we could summarize in one word, this proposal of Jesus not being simplistic, because Jesus' word suffice in itself, but just for our feeling part, we would say it's about being patient, right? It's about not being violent, non-violence. And you know, Gandhi brought to us clearly this concept of non-violence. How are you in terms of no violence? Sarcasm is violence. Irony is violence. Violence is not something that is done only with the hands or a stick or a gun. Words, expressions, sometimes the lack of approval, not expressing care. There is enough science telling us that we grow based on love. We grow based on love. Our biology is prone to that. We have oxytocin, which is the molecule inside of us that boosts that feeling of togetherness. We have a descending mechanism of analgesia. It's the descending pathway. Yes. Painkillers, natural painkillers in our system. Endorphins is one of them. And when we caress, hug, we are stimulating the release of endorphins, bringing joy, bringing happiness. So we need really to understand more of our physiology to live better. So there are many ways of educating ourselves and sharing those insights. And by being patient is one of them. So let us go to this book here, The Family Virtues Guide by Linda Popov. And she says about patience. Shall we just read it? Doesn't hurt to read a little more, right? She says about patience the following. Patience, and she quotes from the Quran, "O you who believe, seek courage and fortitude in prayer, for God is with those who are patient and persevere." What is patience? Patience is quiet hope. How beautiful is this? Patience is quiet hope and expectation based on trust that in the end everything will be all right. So, she goes on, but let us put a pause. It's so beautiful when she says, everything will be all right. That hope that everything will be all right. Mother Mary, in a reply to Chico Xavier, when he was suffering a lot, she brought through Emmanuel this message to Chico. Everything shall pass. She was, in other words, saying, be patient. How patient are you? Did you know that you can boost your patience? How? That's why I'm showing you this book, The Family Virtues Guide. Because, she says, how do you practice it? Let's read. You practice patience by accepting things you cannot control. Even if you feel impatient, you act calm and accepting while waiting for someone who is delayed. You have faith that things will turn out all right in the end. A sense of humor helps. It's so interesting because it reminds me of a story by one of Yogananda's disciple. I forgot her name, I'm sorry. But she says that Yogananda would train her in patience without telling her so, by saying, "Can you wait for me here?" He would go do something and he would come back 4 hours later. That was Yogananda. I'm not discussing his method, but just talking about the practice of patience, okay? So here we have, when you practice patience, you surrender to something that you have to endure, like an illness, handicap. You're gentle with others. Hold on, friends. I have to check on Virginia. 1 second, please. Okay. Sorry, friends. It's our collective practice on patience. Okay, so patience, says Linda Popov, helps you to stick to something you are trying to do, even when it gets difficult or tiresome. So tonight, as we were in our Media Music meeting, a group of spirit educators shared with us a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful message talking about how important it is to teach children about this quietude, harmony, patience. We can't go on teaching what we're teaching children nowadays, to be overly stimulated. It's okay to let them be, so their creativity can be boosted. Because nowadays it's difficult to be patient because we're overly stimulated. We are one button away from everything, right? One click away. But life is not like this. It's a construction. So we need to persevere. And to persevere, we need patience, right? Yes. So, for all of us, our dear Leia Severo is saying, 5 years ago, one of Canadian TV channel created a series, Kids and Youth Inspired Family Virtues Guide. It's still available on YouTube. Thank you for sharing this, Leia Severo. Thank you. It's so important as we're studying this and we're talking about being the disturbed educator, that we be coherent, that we practice with others what we want others to do. Because Andrew was asking how hard it is to adjust to living according to the new truth. And Jesus said, yes, you're right. So that's why we need to practice in order to share it. Stories by the Master, right? So what is our exercise in the next 24 hours? Think about patience. Let us all think about being patient and the promise that everything is going to be all right. That we need to persevere in the good, irrespective of people's applause, of the spotlight. We don't need the spotlight. We don't need people's applause to do the right. We need God's approval. And God's approval is in our conscience. When we go to sleep, if I'm able to sleep, well, it's a sign that I am on the right track without external help, right? So let us meditate on this and practice together this opportunity to be patient. Exactly, it is. It's an opportunity to be charitable. Okay? Surrender, quiet hope, and the trust that everything is going to be all right. Keep doing the good, doing the good, doing the good. And like Celia from the book 50 Years Later by Emmanuel, always interpreting as a blessing in disguise and going on and on and on. What if we sleep too much? Livia, well, if we sleep too much, there could be other things. Stories for another day. For now, we're going to invite you, all of you, to pray. Shall we pray together? Let us pray. Prayer is so important. We need to pray more often. Let us find that inner moment, feeling the presence of God, breathing the air that sustains our lives. Breathe out. Dear God, we're so grateful that you provide us with these teachings. May we focus on our growth, and thus will naturally be stimulating one another's. Do not allow us to focus on changing others, for it's not on us to do any of it. Help us be compassionate and diligent in helping and assisting everyone who is in need. Give us new strength and greater focus to attend to the needs of everyone who places a request. We kindly ask you for inspiration and guidance so we can move forward without hesitation. We've already wasted so much time in so many lives, energies, resources. Finally, awaken, we can move forward steadily. In you, we find the strength that we need, the approval that we need, and the love that sustains our existences. And we pray for all brothers and sisters in humanity and also in the kingdoms of nature that may be going through very difficult challenges. May they find loving vibrations, loving friends who may come their way and relieve their pains and sorrows. And so be it. Thank you, friends. Tomorrow, when we come back, we're going to study chapter 48, The Common Good. It already feels so good, because God is so good. A big hug to you. Until tomorrow, friends, God willing.